Welcome to Exquisite Stories. Please subscribe, like, share. Thank you. The weeks following Esther Maxwell's decision to accept the international partnership were a whirlwind. Vincent Martins had been by her side through every step, offering his guidance and support, but as the partnership took shape, the magnitude of the changes began to set in. The first international culinary school opened in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and the response was overwhelming. Young women from all over the country applied, eager to be part of the program that Esther had worked so hard to build. The media coverage was extensive, and soon, the foundation's name was being recognized internationally. But with success came new pressures. Esther found herself torn between expanding the foundation to meet global demand and staying true to her roots. The offers continued to pour in: international investors, new partnerships, and more media coverage. It was everything she had dreamed of and more, but it was also overwhelming. Vincent, who had always been her rock, started to notice the change in her. She was no longer just the passionate, driven woman he had fallen in love with. She had become a businesswoman, constantly juggling the demands of the global stage. One afternoon, after another long day of meetings and phone calls, Esther found herself sitting alone in her office, staring at the large window that overlooked the bustling streets of Lagos. She had everything she had ever wanted: success, recognition, and Vincent by her side, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Vincent knocked gently on the door before entering. He had sensed her distance over the past few weeks, the way her eyes seemed tired, and the way she no longer smiled as easily. He sat down across from her, his expression soft but concerned. "You've been avoiding me," Vincent said, his voice filled with care. "What's going on, Esther?" She looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know, Vincent. I've built something incredible, but now I feel like I'm losing myself in it. I'm not the same person I was when we first started this journey. I've become a businesswoman, and I don't know if that's who I want to be." Vincent stood up and walked over to her, gently taking her hand. "Esther, you're not losing yourself. You're growing. You've always been someone who fought for what she believed in. This is just another part of that journey. You haven't changed, you've evolved. You're still the woman who built this foundation from scratch, the woman who inspired thousands of women." She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "But I'm scared, Vincent. The bigger this gets, the less control I have. I thought I could make a difference, but now I feel like I'm just another cog in a machine I don't fully understand." Vincent knelt beside her, his gaze sincere. "You've never been just a cog, Esther. You are the heart of this. You set the vision, and I believe in it. Whatever path this takes, I'll walk it with you." Days later, Esther and Vincent sat down for another quiet dinner at their favorite restaurant in Lagos, a place where they had shared countless intimate moments. The candlelight flickered between them, casting a soft glow on their faces. Esther was deep in thought, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "I've been thinking about what you said," Esther began, her voice soft but determined. "Maybe I've been focusing too much on the pressure, on what I'm afraid of losing. I need to go back to what made me start this in the first place: the women, the impact we're having, and the community we've built." Vincent smiled, reaching across the table to gently hold her hand. "That's the woman I fell in love with. And I know she's still there. You can keep your heart and your vision intact while growing this. We'll do it together, every step of the way." She nodded, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. "You're right. It's time to get back to the basics, to focus on the mission and not just the expansion. But we're still going to take it to the next level. We'll build something that can change the world, not just make headlines." In the weeks that followed, Esther refocused her efforts, realigning the foundation's growth with her original vision. She worked closely with her team to ensure that the new global partnerships were in line with the foundation's core values: empowerment, education, and community. The foundation flourished, but Esther no longer felt the weight of doing it alone. Vincent was always by her side, helping her make decisions that honored her dream without sacrificing her integrity. Together, they made decisions that would ensure that the women they were empowering would not just have opportunities, they would have the tools to create their own legacies. Esther realized that this journey wasn't about managing every aspect of the foundation on her own. It was about building a team, trusting others, and letting the vision grow organically. One evening, as the first international location of the Culinary Arts School held its graduation ceremony, Esther stood on stage, looking out at the proud faces of the young women who had completed the program. The women were now poised to change their own communities and the world. The realization hit her then: the future she had worked so hard to build was no longer just hers. It was theirs. As she looked over at Vincent, who was standing in the audience, beaming with pride, Esther knew that together, they had created something far greater than either of them could have done alone. It wasn't just about food or business. It was about changing lives, one woman at a time. As the international expansion of Esther Maxwell's Culinary Arts Foundation gained momentum, Esther and Vincent Martins began to feel the weight of their success. The foundation had become more than just a project, it was now a global initiative with the power to transform communities worldwide. But with this growth came new challenges: financial pressures, media scrutiny, and, as always, the delicate balance between Esther's personal values and the demands of business. Despite their efforts to stay grounded, the growing media attention on Esther and the foundation brought a new level of stress into their relationship. As Esther was invited to more international events and award ceremonies, her time with Vincent became more limited. Vincent, ever the supportive partner, had his own business empire to manage, but he was becoming increasingly aware that Esther was starting to feel the strain of the spotlight. Esther and Vincent arrive at an international awards gala, where Esther has been nominated for her work in empowering women through the culinary arts. The event is filled with the world's elite, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and media personalities. Esther is invited on stage to receive an award, but as she makes her way to the podium, she feels the weight of all the expectations on her shoulders. The cameras flash, the world watches, and she feels a sense of pressure she hasn't fully prepared for. Vincent watches from the sidelines, proud but concerned. As Esther delivers her acceptance speech, speaking passionately about the women who inspire her, she begins to feel the emotional toll of the public attention. After the ceremony, Vincent finds Esther backstage, her face a mix of exhaustion and triumph. Vincent approaches her gently, his voice filled with concern. "Are you okay?" Esther takes a deep breath, managing a weak smile. "I'm fine. Just a bit overwhelmed." Vincent places a hand on her shoulder. "You've worked so hard for this. But remember, this is about you, your vision, your passion. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders alone." She looks up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know how much longer I can keep up with this. The pressure, the expectations. I'm afraid I'm losing myself in all of it." He nods understandingly. "You don't have to do this by yourself. Let me help you, Esther. Let me take some of that weight off." A few days later, Esther and Vincent share a quiet evening in Vincent's penthouse, away from the hustle and bustle of their busy lives. Esther sits on the balcony, gazing out over the Lagos skyline, her mind still caught up in the pressures of her expanding foundation and the constant media attention. Vincent joins her, bringing 2 glasses of wine. As he sits beside her, he offers her a gentle smile. "You're not alone in this, Esther. You've built something incredible, and I'm proud of you. But you don't have to carry everything on your own." Esther looks at him, her eyes filled with vulnerability. "I feel like I'm losing myself, Vincent. This was supposed to be about helping others, but now I feel like I'm drowning in all of it. I'm just trying to keep up, and I don't know how much longer I can." Vincent takes her hand in his voice filled with understanding. "We can scale back, if you need. We can focus on what matters the most, and delegate what we can't manage. You've built a legacy, Esther, and you don't need to do everything yourself. I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together." They sit in silence for a while, the soft hum of the city in the background. Esther feels the weight lift slightly from her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she feels a sense of peace, knowing that Vincent is her partner. Not just in business but in every aspect of her life. A few weeks later, Esther decides to make adjustments to how she runs her foundation and business. She meets with her team and delegates more responsibilities to trusted partners, freeing herself to focus on the areas that truly matter to her. She also decides to take more time off for herself, recognizing that her well-being is just as important as the success of her foundation. Vincent, too, steps in to assist where needed, offering support without overshadowing her. The two of them work together to create a new structure for the foundation, one that allows Esther to stay true to her original mission while managing its growth in a sustainable way. As they stand together in Esther's food stall, watching the business flourish with the help of her team, Vincent smiles at her. "You've done it, Esther. You've made your dream come true. And now, you're doing it your way." Esther looks at him, her heart full. "And I couldn't have done it without you, Vincent." The foundation's first international location opens, and Esther and Vincent stand together in front of the new school, ready to welcome the next generation of women who will change the world through the culinary arts. The opening ceremony is attended by high-profile guests, but Esther is no longer overwhelmed by the pressure. She feels confident, knowing that she has found a balance between her dreams, her team, and the love and support of Vincent. As the ribbon is cut, Esther looks at Vincent, her eyes filled with gratitude. "This is just the beginning." Vincent smiles, squeezing her hand. "I know. And I'll be with you every step of the way." Later that evening, as they sit together in Vincent's penthouse, Esther reflects on how far they've come. She feels at peace, knowing that the balance between her personal and professional life is no longer a battle, it's a partnership. Vincent. After the rooftop conversation, things began to shift for Esther Maxwell and Vincent Martins. Esther had made the decision to embrace the international partnership, but she still felt the weight of her choices. It wasn't just about managing the foundation, it was about maintaining the heart of what she had started. She had begun to delegate more, trusting her team to handle the daily operations while she focused on the vision. The pressure to meet global expectations was constant. Every new location that opened, every new partnership made, felt like a milestone in Esther's journey. But there were times when the emotional toll would catch up with her. As the foundation continued to grow, so did Esther's understanding of herself. She started taking more time for herself, rediscovering the joy she once felt when it was just her and the women she helped. Vincent, in his own way, was her steady anchor. He had become more than just a business partner. He was a confidant, someone she could turn to when the world felt too big. One weekend, Vincent and Esther took a trip to a secluded beach outside of the city, away from the prying eyes of the public and media. Esther had been feeling the weight of her decisions more heavily in recent weeks, and Vincent knew that she needed space to clear her mind. The two of them walked along the shore, the soft sound of the waves crashing against the sand offering a calming rhythm. Esther had always been a woman of action, driven, determined, and focused on her mission. But standing on that quiet beach, watching the vast ocean stretch before her, Esther began to realize that the world wasn't as overwhelming as it seemed. "Sometimes," Esther said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I forget why I started this. All of the noise, all of the expectations. It starts to drown out what really matters." Vincent stopped beside her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "You've built something incredible, Esther. But don't forget that you're still you. The heart of this foundation, of everything, is you. And if you lose yourself, none of this will matter." She looked at him, a mixture of gratitude and vulnerability in her eyes. "I needed to hear that. I've been so focused on growing, expanding, that I forgot the original purpose. I'm not just a businesswoman, I'm someone who wants to make a real difference." Vincent smiled, offering a comforting touch. "And you are. Don't lose sight of that. The world will always want more, but you can decide what more means for you." For the first time in a long while, Esther felt the weight she had been carrying begin to lift. She was no longer just Esther Maxwell, the CEO of a growing empire. She was Esther, a woman with a purpose, with a heart for change, and with the ability to lead with integrity. Returning to her food stall felt like a homecoming for Esther. Despite the international success, the stall had always been the heart of her business. It was where she had first discovered her passion for food, where she had built the community that supported her every step of the way. Vincent joined her as she oversaw the preparation of the day's meals, and he noticed the change in her. There was a lightness in her step, a renewed sense of purpose. Esther had found a way to reconnect with the roots of her mission. "I've been thinking," Esther said, as she handed a plate of food to a customer, "about how I've been managing everything. I've realized that I've been so focused on the growth that I haven't really stopped to appreciate what I've built here." Vincent smiled, proud of the woman she had become. "And that's the beauty of what you're doing. You've built something sustainable. It's not just about growth. It's about impact." As the day went on, Esther felt herself slipping back into the rhythm of her original vision. The stall wasn't just a business, it was a place where women came to learn, where young chefs were mentored, and where food was a tool for empowerment. The conversation they had in the morning on the beach had given her clarity. She wasn't just creating a business. She was creating change. And with Vincent by her side, she knew they could continue to build that change without compromising her values. As the foundation continued to expand, Esther and Vincent found themselves having more discussions about their shared future. They had grown not only as partners in business but as individuals who understood each other's dreams and fears. One evening, as they sat in Vincent's office, going over new plans for the next phase of the foundation's international expansion, Esther spoke with renewed confidence. "I want the next chapter of this foundation to focus on sustainability. We've created something amazing, but I want to make sure it lasts. I want to empower the women in a way that they can build on this themselves, without us." Vincent looked at her, a proud smile on his face. "That's what I love about you, Esther. You never stop thinking about the future. And I'll be with you every step of the way." They both looked out the window, watching the city below. It was a symbol of the possibilities they had built together, a future full of promise, but also one that came with its share of challenges. But Esther knew, as long as they worked together, they could overcome anything. As the graduation ceremony took place in the newly opened culinary school, Esther and Vincent stood together, watching the young women who had completed the program. They had done it. Esther's vision had come to life in ways she had never imagined. Esther couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. "Look at them," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "This is what we've created." Vincent smiled at her, his hand resting on hers. "And this is just the beginning. You've built something that will outlast us, Esther. These women will go on to create their own legacies." As the ceremony ended, Esther stood at the front of the room, looking out at the graduates. She realized that this was her legacy, not just the business or the foundation, but the empowerment and opportunity she had given to others. And as she looked at Vincent, she knew that their journey together was far from over. The international expansion of Esther Maxwell's Culinary Arts Foundation had surpassed everyone's expectations. Esther had built something incredible, an institution that not only educated young women but also empowered them to break through barriers, opening doors to new opportunities. But as the foundation grew, so did the pressure to maintain its success. Despite the accolades and international recognition, Esther found herself once again at a crossroads. The balance between managing her expanding empire and staying connected to her original mission became more challenging than ever. One evening, after a long day of meetings and calls with potential investors, Esther stood by the window of her office in Lagos. The city stretched before her, vibrant and full of life, but the weight of the decisions she was facing seemed heavier than ever. Vincent had stepped back, giving her space to lead, but now she wasn't sure if she was on the right path. Esther sits at her desk, staring at the plans for the next phase of the foundation's global expansion. The numbers are overwhelming, the expectations mounting. She runs her hands through her hair, feeling the pressure of it all. Vincent walks into the room, sensing her frustration. "You've been at this for hours. Take a break." Esther doesn't look up. "I can't, Vincent. There's so much at stake now. Every decision feels like it could change everything." Vincent steps closer, sitting beside her. "I know it's hard. But remember, you've been making these decisions since the beginning. You've never been alone in this." Esther finally looks at him, her expression worn. "But have I lost myself along the way? I used to be so sure of what I wanted. Now, I feel like I'm just trying to keep up with everyone else's expectations." Vincent takes her hand gently. "You've never lost yourself, Esther. You've just grown. And I'm here, every step of the way, to help you navigate it." She breathes deeply, the weight of the conversation lifting slightly as Vincent's steady presence reassures her. "I can't do it all," she admits. "I have to let go of some things." "Then we'll let go of what doesn't serve you," Vincent replies. "Focus on what matters most. And if you need me, I'm here." The scene shows the tender balance between their love and the weight of their professional lives, with Esther beginning to realize that it's okay to ask for help. Months later, Esther is invited to speak at a global charity gala in New York, an event that attracts some of the most influential people in business and philanthropy. She is introduced as the keynote speaker, but as she stands on the stage, she feels the familiar nerves creeping in. The room is full of powerful individuals, all looking to her for inspiration. Vincent watches from the audience, proud of her growth but aware of the weight on her shoulders. As Esther speaks about the impact of her foundation, her voice grows steady. She talks about the women who have been empowered by her program, the community she's built, and the need for sustainable growth. But she also speaks candidly about the challenges of balancing it all. "Success is not just about growth," Esther says, her voice firm. "It's about staying true to the people who got you here. And that means remembering where you started. Remembering why you started." The room falls silent, the impact of her words resonating with the audience. Vincent smiles, knowing that Esther has found her voice again, stronger, more authentic, and more committed than ever to her mission. After the speech, as Esther walks off stage, she's approached by several potential investors and global leaders eager to collaborate. But Esther realizes that this moment isn't just about more expansion, it's about finding the right partnerships, ones that align with her values. As she looks out over the city skyline from the gala's rooftop, Vincent joins her, offering her a quiet moment of reflection. "You were incredible up there," he says softly. Esther smiles, her eyes filled with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't about the accolades this time. It was about staying true to the women we're serving. Back in Lagos, Esther takes a moment to visit the food stall, where it all began. The stall is as vibrant as ever, filled with people enjoying the dishes that have become a symbol of empowerment. Esther walks through the bustling space, her heart swelling with pride. She speaks with the women who have learned from her, hearing their stories of growth and success. Esther feels the connection to her roots stronger than ever. She realizes that this place, this community, will always be the foundation of everything she does. Vincent joins her, noticing the peace that has returned to Esther's expression. "You're at peace, aren't you?" Esther nods. "I've realized that no matter how far we go, we can't forget where we came from. The food stall isn't just a business, it's the heart of everything we've built." The scene captures Esther's growth and renewed sense of purpose, grounded in the community she created. "I think we've found our balance," Esther says, her voice filled with contentment. "I'm ready for the next step. But this time, we'll do it together, on our terms." Vincent smiles, taking her hand. "Whatever comes next, Esther, I'm with you. Always." Months passed since the pivotal gala in New York, and Esther Maxwell and Vincent Martins found themselves once again at a crossroads. The foundation continued to flourish, expanding into new countries and transforming the lives of thousands of women, but Esther began to realize that with every new location, every new partnership, there were pieces of her original vision that were beginning to fade. Her connection to the women she had originally set out to help was beginning to feel more distant. She found herself focusing more on meetings, contracts, and global growth than on the individual stories of empowerment that had motivated her in the first place. Vincent, ever observant, noticed the change in Esther. While she remained dedicated to the cause, there was a sense of weariness that seemed to weigh on her. Their conversations became more focused on the logistics of the business rather than their shared vision for the future. Vincent knew that something needed to change. Esther needed to reconnect with her purpose, and they needed to find a way to balance the growing success with the original heart of the mission. One afternoon, after several long weeks of travel and meetings, Esther found herself standing once again at the food stall, the place where it all began. The familiar smells of sizzling food, the chatter of customers, and the warmth of the community made her feel grounded in a way she hadn't in months. She watched the women working alongside her, laughing and talking as they prepared the meals. These were the same women she had mentored, the ones she had fought so hard to give opportunities. She realized that, in her pursuit of expansion, she had lost touch with what truly mattered, the relationships, the community, the change at the grassroots level. Vincent joined her, his presence offering a sense of calm. He could see the change in her demeanor as she took in the scene. He stepped up beside her and quietly asked, "How are you feeling?" Esther sighed, her eyes filling with emotion. "I've been so focused on building something bigger that I forgot the most important part. These women, the community we've built. This is where it all started. This is what really matters." Vincent placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "You've built something extraordinary, Esther. But the reason it's extraordinary is because it's rooted in this community, in these relationships. You don't have to sacrifice that as you grow. The future can still be built on these same foundations." Esther nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She realized that she didn't need to lose the heart of the foundation in order to scale it. She could still create global change while staying true to the people who had always been her inspiration. Challenging week of meetings, Vincent surprised Esther with a trip to a secluded beach outside of Lagos. As they walked along the shore, with the sunset casting a warm golden hue over the water, Vincent stopped and turned to face Esther. "Esther," he began, his voice soft but steady, "you've changed my life in ways I never imagined. You've taught me so much, about love, about purpose, and about what it means to truly care for something greater than ourselves." Esther smiled, feeling the weight of his words and the warmth of his presence. "I couldn't have done it without you, Vincent. You've always been by my side, through everything." He took a deep breath, then dropped to one knee, taking her hand in his. "So, Esther Maxwell, will you marry me? Will you continue this journey with me, as my partner in everything, forever?" Tears welled up in Esther's eyes as she gazed at him, her heart swelling with love. "Yes, Vincent. Yes, I'll marry you." The moment was perfect. Intimate, meaningful, and full of promise for the future. As Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, knowing that this was the next chapter in their shared journey. As Esther and Vincent began to plan their future together, they talked about more than just the wedding. They discussed what it meant to build a life that honored both their dreams. Esther, who had always been focused on her foundation and its mission, had now found a new source of strength in her relationship with Vincent. Together, they dreamed of a life that balanced both their professional pursuits and their personal connection. "We've built something beautiful together, Vincent," Esther said, her voice filled with excitement and anticipation. "This foundation, this vision we have for the future, it's just the beginning." "I know," Vincent replied, his hand resting on hers. "And now we get to build it together, as partners, not just in business, but in everything." As they worked together to plan their wedding, it became clear that this was more than just a celebration of their love, it was a commitment to the life they had always envisioned, a future where they would support each other through everything. A few months later, Esther and Vincent stood on the same beach where they had gotten engaged, surrounded by close friends, family, and their most trusted colleagues. The ceremony was intimate and personal, reflecting everything they stood for: love, commitment, and community. Esther looked radiant in a simple yet elegant gown, her hair flowing freely. Vincent, looking handsome as ever in a tailored suit, smiled at her with pure adoration. As they exchanged vows, their love for each other was palpable, and the commitment they made to one another was sealed with a kiss. "We've been through so much, Vincent," Esther said during the ceremony, her voice filled with emotion. "But I know that together, there's nothing we can't face." Vincent smiled, taking her hands. "You've changed my life, Esther. And I promise to stand by you, in everything, forever." The scene was peaceful, beautiful, and a perfect reflection of their journey, a journey that had always been about building something meaningful together. Now, with marriage as the foundation of their personal life, they were ready to take on whatever the future held, side by side. After the wedding, Esther and Vincent spent a quiet evening in their new home. The evening was filled with laughter, love, and the sense that they had truly come full circle. Esther looked at Vincent, her heart full as she took his hand. "Everything feels perfect now," she said, her voice soft and content. "We've made it. Together." Vincent smiled, pulling her closer. "This is just the beginning, Esther. Together, we'll build the future we've always dreamed of." As they sat together, watching the city below them, they knew that their love was the cornerstone of everything they would do moving forward. They had built a life together, grounded in purpose and love, and now, as husband and wife, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. It had been a year since Esther Maxwell and Vincent Martins had tied the knot. Their partnership, both in business and love, had grown stronger with every passing day. The foundation was thriving, and their shared vision for the future felt more attainable than ever. Yet, despite the success they had achieved, Esther and Vincent knew that there was still something missing, something they had both dreamed of for years. The unexpected news of Esther's pregnancy brought joy and excitement to their lives, but it also brought new challenges and changes. The couple had always been focused on building the foundation in their careers, but now, as they prepared to welcome a child into their lives, they realized that their journey was about to take a beautiful new direction. It was a quiet morning when Esther first discovered she was pregnant. She had been feeling tired and a little off for the past few days, but she hadn't thought much of it. However, after a visit to the doctor, the news was undeniable. Esther was pregnant. She sat in Vincent's penthouse, the weight of the news settling in. The city stretched out before her, a sea of possibility, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mixed with nervousness. When Vincent returned home, Esther couldn't hold back her smile. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. Vincent looked at her with curiosity. "What is it?" Esther stood up, holding her hands over her heart, before saying, "I'm pregnant, Vincent. We're going to have a baby." For a moment, Vincent didn't say anything. Then, a wide smile spread across his face, and he took a step toward Esther, enveloping her in a warm embrace. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice full of awe and joy. "I'm serious," Esther whispered, her eyes filled with tears of happiness. They held each other for a long moment, savoring the joy of the news. Esther and Vincent had both dreamed of starting a family together, and now their dreams were coming true. The news of Esther's pregnancy was both thrilling and daunting. She had always been at the helm of the foundation, making every decision and leading with her heart. But now, she was faced with the realization that things were going to change. She could no longer work around the clock, and the foundation would need to adjust to her growing family responsibilities. Vincent noticed the strain in Esther's eyes as she sat at her desk, going over documents for the foundation. The pregnancy had taken its toll on her energy, and though she was excited about the baby, she also felt the weight of her responsibilities. "You don't have to do everything yourself, Esther," Vincent said softly, his hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure out a way to balance everything." Esther smiled, appreciating his support. I know, but I want to make sure the foundation stays strong. I've worked so hard to build this, and I don't want to step back. I also don't want to feel like I'm losing myself in the process. You won't lose yourself, Vincent said, his voice steady. We'll find a way to balance your health, the foundation, and the baby. We're in this together. The idea of family had always been a dream for both of them, but now it was becoming a reality. Esther realized that, just as they had built the foundation together, they would build their family together as well. In the months that followed, Esther and Vincent began preparing for the arrival of their baby. They spent weekends shopping for baby clothes, setting up a nursery, and imagining what life would be like with a child. The couple found joy in these moments, even as they both adjusted to the idea of their lives changing forever. One evening, as Esther sat in the nursery, surrounded by baby clothes and toys, Vincent sat next to her. It's hard to believe this little one is going to be ours, he said, his voice filled with wonder. I know, Esther replied, her hand resting on her growing belly. I can't wait to see what kind of parent you'll be. I already know what kind of parent you'll be, Vincent smiled. Strong, loving, and determined to make sure our child grows up in a world where anything is possible. They shared a quiet moment, imagining their future together as a family. The day finally came when Esther Maxwell went into labor. The entire family and the foundation staff were eager to hear the news, but for Vincent and Esther, it was a deeply personal moment. Vincent stayed by Esther's side throughout the entire process, offering his love and support as they both faced the overwhelming excitement of becoming parents. After hours of anticipation, the baby was born, a healthy, beautiful baby girl. Vincent stood next to Esther, holding their newborn daughter in his arms. Esther smiled through her exhaustion, looking at Vincent with tears in her eyes. She's perfect. She is, Vincent replied, his voice thick with emotion. And we're going to give her everything. They looked at their daughter, knowing that their journey as parents was just beginning. But no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, just as they always had. Becoming parents had changed everything for Esther Maxwell and Vincent Martins. The moment they laid eyes on their newborn daughter, their lives were transformed. The joy, the love, and the overwhelming sense of responsibility filled their hearts. But as they embraced parenthood, they also had to adapt to the new dynamics of their personal and professional lives. Esther was still deeply committed to her foundation, but now, with their daughter to care for, she found herself facing a delicate balance between motherhood and continuing the work that had always been her passion. In the days following the birth of their daughter, Esther and Vincent had settled into a rhythm as new parents. The penthouse, which had once been filled with quiet evenings and ambitious discussions, was now full of the sound of a crying baby, laughter, and the soft hum of baby monitors. Esther was exhausted but happy, holding their daughter in her arms as Vincent gently rocked the crib nearby. It was a scene that felt new, yet so right. Esther had never imagined that the demands of motherhood would be so great, but she couldn't imagine anything else. Vincent turned to Esther, a warm smile on his face. How are you holding up? Esther smiled back, though there was a hint of exhaustion in her eyes. I'm doing all right. Just adjusting to this new life. It's a lot to handle, but I wouldn't change it for anything. She looked down at their daughter, who was peacefully sleeping in her arms. It's hard to believe we're parents now. Everything is changing. Vincent walked over, placing a gentle touch on Esther's forehead. We're in this together, Esther. We always have been, and we always will be. You're not alone. A few weeks later, Esther was back in the office, trying to find a balance between being a mother and running the foundation. The work never stopped, new proposals, meetings with international partners, and strategizing for future initiatives. But now, it was different. She had a baby at home, and while the foundation was her passion, her daughter was her priority. As Esther sat in her office, reviewing a proposal, she felt a familiar tension building. She was torn between two worlds, her work and her new role as a mother. The pressure of both was beginning to weigh on her. Just then, Vincent walked into the office, holding their daughter in his arms. She had fallen asleep in his embrace. And there was a quiet calm about him as he entered the room. "Hey," Vincent said gently, walking over to Esther. "You need a break." Esther looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know how you do it all. You're always so calm and composed." Vincent smiled, sitting down beside her. "We're a team, remember? You don't have to do everything alone. We're adjusting to this new life together." Esther leaned her head on his shoulder, taking a deep breath. "I know. But sometimes it feels like I'm juggling so many things at once. I don't want to let the foundation slip, but I also don't want to miss a moment with our daughter." Vincent looked down at the baby in his arms, then back at Esther. "We'll find the balance, I promise. And if you ever need a break, I'm here. We'll make sure this works, for you, for me, and for our family." The following weekend, Esther and Vincent hosted a small family gathering at Vincent's estate to celebrate the arrival of their daughter. Family and close friends gathered in the beautiful garden, where laughter and warmth filled the air. Esther was able to take a moment to step away from the demands of the foundation and simply enjoy being with loved ones. As Vincent held their daughter, surrounded by family, he turned to Esther with a soft smile. "Look at her. She's already changing everything for us." Esther smiled, watching Vincent interact with their daughter. "I never thought I could feel so much love. It's overwhelming in the best way possible." Vincent took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "We're going to make sure she has everything she needs, Esther. But we're also going to show her the importance of giving back, of making a difference, just like you've always taught me." Esther smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "I want her to see that the world is full of possibilities, and that no matter what she decides to do, she can make a difference." They stood together, looking at their daughter, knowing that the future was bright, not just for them, but for the little life they were now responsible for. As the night settled over the city, Esther and Vincent sat together on the balcony, their daughter asleep in the next room. The city lights twinkled below them, casting a soft glow over the skyline. "You know," Esther began, her voice soft, "we've come so far. We've built something incredible together. But now, it feels like we're starting a new chapter." Vincent wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. "We are. And it's a chapter one wouldn't want to start with anyone else." They looked out at the city, both of them full of hope and excitement for the future. The challenges of the past had brought them closer together, and now, with their daughter by their side, they were ready to take on whatever. The transition from the fast-paced, high-stakes world of global expansion to the grounding reality of family life had been challenging but rewarding for Esther Maxwell and Vincent Martins. The foundation was continuing to thrive, and they had found a balance that worked for them. But the future was filled with endless possibilities, and the decisions they made now would shape the direction of their legacy for years to come. Esther had learned that success was not just about growth or financial achievements, it was about building something that could endure, something that would leave a lasting impact. And with Vincent by her side, she knew that they could make a difference, no matter what came next. One evening, as the soft glow of the city lights filled their penthouse, Esther and Vincent shared a quiet dinner at home. Esther had been reflecting on the months since the birth of their daughter and the profound changes that had come with parenthood. "I've been thinking," Esther said, placing her fork down. "About the foundation, our family, everything. We've built something incredible, but I want to make sure it lasts. That it's sustainable and impactful for generations." Vincent leaned forward, his eyes filled with admiration. "You've always thought about the long term, Esther. But now, we're thinking about our daughter's future. How we'll guide her in this world we've created." Esther smiled, her heart full. "Exactly. I want to show her the importance of giving back, of using the resources we've worked hard for to help others. She's going to be a part of this legacy." Vincent nodded, taking her hand. And we'll teach her that it's not just about wealth or success. It's about impact. It's about making a difference. The two of them sat in silence for a moment, knowing that their shared vision for the future was not just about expanding the foundation, but about creating a world where love, purpose, and legacy could thrive. The next day, Esther gathered her team at the foundation's office to discuss the next steps in their mission. The foundation had expanded across multiple countries, but Esther was determined to refocus on local initiatives that would create deep, meaningful change. "I think it's time we look inward again," Esther said, addressing the room. "We've grown, we've expanded, but now it's about creating a lasting, sustainable impact at the local level. We're going to focus on the communities that need us most." Her team listened intently as she outlined a new strategy, one that would not just be about business, but about people. About creating training centers, educational programs, and support systems for women in underserved areas. "We'll still expand internationally, but we'll always keep the heart of the foundation grounded in community and empowerment," Esther continued. "This is where we began, and this is where we'll continue to build." Vincent, who had been silently observing from the side, stepped forward. "And as always, Esther and I will continue to be hands-on. We're in this together. Our family, our foundation, our mission, it's all interconnected." The room filled with a sense of purpose, as everyone felt energized by the renewed direction. Esther knew that this was the beginning of something new, a new chapter not only for her foundation but for her family. Later that evening, Esther and Vincent sat together, their daughter asleep in the next room. They were reflecting on their journey and what lay ahead. "Do you ever think about the future?" Esther asked, her voice filled with wonder. "About what we're building for her, for our family?" Vincent smiled, his eyes filled with love. "I think about it every day. Our daughter is the future, Esther. And everything we do, everything we've built, it's all for her. We want her to grow up knowing that she's part of something bigger, something that will last." Esther nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "She's already a part of it. And I know she'll carry this legacy forward, just like we have." They sat in silence for a moment, content in each other's company, knowing that the road ahead would be full of challenges. But together, they had already built something extraordinary, a family, a foundation, and a love that would last. As the night settled in, Esther and Vincent stood together, looking out at the city below. The lights shimmered in the distance, and the sounds of the city filled the air. Esther looked at Vincent, her heart full. "I think we've done it, Vincent. We've built a future we can be proud of." Vincent pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "We've built it together, Esther. And together, we'll continue to build, no matter what comes our way." They stood there, side by side, knowing that the future was full of possibilities. And with each other, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by love, purpose, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Thanks for watching. The next story is coming up soon.